So, Ms. Baker, I had a couple of questions about our team, and I think Commissioner McKinley was alluding to this, but I believe, have a team that looks into citizen complaints about noncompliance. I believe strongly that if we are going to, if these establishments that are having these parties after hours are in fact the cause of the spike in cases, that we need to have enforcement that's a lot stronger than that. And I don't know what our authority is to impose draconian type fines, but I think, we don't need to put a slap on the wrist, because a lot of these businesses, if it's a couple of $100 fine, they consider it a cost of doing business, and they continue to violate the law. So I think there needs to be a law enforcement presence, not a code enforcement presence. And I'm sure the sheriff, I'm not sure, but I would imagine the sheriff would be enthusiastic, because I know in listening to his comments at our press conferences, he is quite aggressive about pursuing, whether it's sandbars or various other things. In the beginning of this, he didn't want to see this get out of control, and he didn't want people flouting the law. So I want to talk about what kind of fines we can impose that are meaningful, and recruit formally the sheriff and his deputies to do after-hours patrols, find these establishments, and shut them down aggressively.
Mayor, do you want me to respond to that?
Sure. Let me just add one perspective. First of all, thank you, Commissioner Malachet. I can tell you that I've had discussions with Ramsey and other members of senior staff to have the fines raised up to a maximum of $15,000 per subsequent violation. Further, we are now officially working with the Department of Business and Professional Regulation through their Division of Law Enforcement, which is also known as Alcoholic Beverages and Tobacco. And they are part of the education and compliance team, and they go out with the men and women here locally. And they are empowered at a higher level to do some regulatory enforcement, including but not limited to revoking of the liquor license on the spot for overt violations. I can also tell you that it is currently made up of 7 law enforcement agencies here locally, including the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office, and to include non-sworn analysts within that unit. And the sheriff, I'd like to commend him here today for his very robust support in everything we've done. And he certainly has provided meaningful support to the education and compliance team. The last point that I would make is there will always be a very heavy emphasis on education through this team, but we are transitioning now to more of an enforcement perspective, because the education has gone on for some time. We've seen some very robust results and participation from the business community, and at a certain point you enter into a phase where the violations become direct and by design. So I'd be interested to hear what our county administrator thinks about that.
We are moving forward, as I stated earlier. Our COVID and education compliance team has been outstanding. We've actually closed facilities working with tobacco and firearm, along with the fact that we also include our fire department along with the health department. So as we go into these places, we are ensuring if they're not supposed to be open, we're closing them. A lot of them have, after being educated, they have agreed and they've closed. Problem is they just kind of open back up. We're currently working on an ordinance, modifying our fine ordinance so that we can put those fines in place. Right now, I don't have the authority to levy those type fines, but we're we are expediting the modification of our ordinance so that those type of fines can be levied, because it is the cost of doing business. If I'm only going to get find $500, I make that in 15 minutes, I can do that all day and all night. And so we have to have the hammer that it hurts, but not only for fining, but that, maybe on first violation, we close you for 24 hours. On the second violation, we close you for even more hours. And then work with tobacco and firearms and lift their licenses because they're putting us all in danger. So we are working on that ordinance, and we'll be bringing it back to the board. I do anticipate us bringing it before the board. There is a planning meeting on the 25th. I will be adding on to that planning meeting an update of COVID-19. And in addition to that, I will also add on the first preliminary reading and permission to advertise on that particular ordinance. And then at the next available meeting, we will adopt it and go right into effect.
All right, well, I'm glad to hear we're moving forward on that. Thank you.
Very good, and it seems like there's, as there always has been, very broad support from this board for the most effective penalties that are available. Does that conclude your questions, Commissioner Balasche?
It does.
Very good. Commissioner Weiss, you recognized.
Thank you. I just wanted to update the board. Numbers have come in. The state is reporting 9,194 new cases in the state, 473 new cases in Palm Beach County, 133 deaths in the state, and 5 new recorded deaths in Palm Beach County.
Very good. Thank you, Commissioner Weiss.